starting to give up because they can't afford to get a good job or own a house.
8 million Venezuelans voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3.
It is. And people are going to start rioting in the streets.
Was reported to have asked Putin for military support that would help him stay in power.
We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
And they ignore him, and 8 more years goes by till Bernie himself finally admits to his sons, hey, I've been running a Ponzi scheme.
Does its dominance mean it can use the alliance for its own ends?
Since 1981, bond yields, also known as coupon rates, have just gone down and down and down.
The Federal Reserve note will be your biggest financial liability. RTD Live Talk, Monday night, the 23rd day of the month of July. We are live, and I'm looking forward to finding out your thoughts based upon the subject of tonight's discussion. And if you followed me before, you know I love covering retirement and the pension funds and how much of a lie and a Ponzi scheme those vehicles are. But more importantly, today I really want to cover the idea of some stuff I came across this weekend, as well as a video I shared last on Saturday in regards to Glenn Beck and Tiki Tiwari's discussion on the bear market being over. So looking forward to getting your thoughts on that, as well as whatever else is happening in the news. And so before we get any further, welcome to RT Live Talk. My name is Mike, and I'll give it a second before I begin chit-chatting. But if we have any new viewers, feel free to let me know where you're checking in from, and as well as whatever might be happening in your world in reference to any political news or the economy that is worth discussing. And so I want to basically just get your thoughts on the video. And so when I came across that video the other day, I figured I had to share it just because I think it was very educational, yet encouraging for those in the crypto sector that are part of the crypto sector, might be, you know, some of the newbies that might be questioning the bear market and where the direction of the crypto sector. And so I thought it would be very encouraging for those that might be a little down and out, but then also for those that may not be too familiar with it in regards to the details of how it's operating, give you a chance to hear and just hear a different voice on that sector there. So, as always, got Scott tuning in. We got Death. By Death says, the only ones that cares more about money are those who take it from me. The heck with pension funds. Yeah, so I got a couple articles I want to share with you, all based upon the whole concept. And if you had a chance to watch that video about cryptocurrencies, we have Mike from NY. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for tuning in. And so the subject matter is we're going to talk about pensions and how I've had 48 hours to really kind of gather my thoughts on the position I'm going to take tonight, and I'm interested in getting your thoughts on it. But basically, pretty soon, once the step 1, step 2, step 3 is in place for the cryptocurrency market, as that video mentioned earlier from Tiki Tiwari and Glenn Beck about how institutional money is waiting, and the venture capital firms are already behind some of the institutions that will be catapulting this market even higher. But the idea that pension funds will inevitably be rolled into the crypto sector. And so what does that mean? That means for those who have been patiently waiting, those who are early adopters especially, will be rewarded handsomely, just because it will be a no-brainer that once the steps are taken to secure and solidify crypto as an asset class from an institutional standpoint, that pension funds will have no doubt but to get involved, because they will not want to miss out on some of the potential gains that will come from the sector, given the fact that, as I'm going to show with you here, a lot of the pension funds are underfunded, heavily underfunded, some close to, 70% of being funded. So that's 30-40% of just them not having the funds needed to meet their obligations. And so I'm going to actually look at the biggest pension fund, which is the California pensions system, and break down some of their allocation and share allocations with what they're holding, and share my thoughts on how I believe at a minimum they're going to be putting 5% worth of their funds into cryptos to kind of make up for some of the difference of gains that they're not going to get from the stock market, because the stock market is heavily overpriced and the gains are suspect at best. So that being the case, I believe that approximately 5% will be put into the crypto market once the 3 steps are taken care of. And so I'll get into some of those steps as well for those that, you know, might be familiar with and some may not be. But step 1 will be the securing of just the whole is it a security type of thing. So Ethereum just recently was announced that it was not a security in regards to it needing to be regulated as such. So that means that that gave the Ethereum a little bit of boost behind it. So once this whole Bitcoin, you know, ETF situation in the next couple of weeks unfolds, whether when it becomes an electronically traded fund, whether it be next month, next week, whatever, it's going to be sometime this year. Once that happens, that'll be step 1, because that will truly solidify the fact that cryptocurrencies are a asset that will be invested in by every institution on this planet in some form or fashion, whether it be from the utility tokens, which are more of the disruptive nature, you know, especially when it comes to the banking and financing, making things easier for the consumers that a lot of money will run into to basically support some of those institutions so that they can make profit on top. But also, as everything business-wise transfers to the blockchain model, there's going to be tokens and stuff like that rolled off on that. And then 2 will be the whole custodian aspect of like who's going to store some of these large institutions' funds. So that's all been worked on right now, whether it be with with Coinbase doing their custody account, as well as all the other companies out there, which I don't know the name of them all, but there's a lot of companies basically working on just storage for safety's sake. And then the third one and the last piece of the puzzle that will solidify completely, which will then allow all the pension funds and retirement accounts to be rolled into those in a partial manner at first, is the whole insurance aspect. So there's a company, I don't know offhand, but there's a company that will be insuring these custodians or whatnot for the crypto sectors, which will validate the idea that, you know, once those 3 steps are solidified, and, you know, just the very first company that comes in and completes all 3 of those steps, it'll be official. And in that case, there's going to be pension funds rolled into it. And so not only did Tiki Tiwari and Glenn Beck discuss the idea that there's institutional money waiting to come in, everyone already knew that. But I actually want to point out a gentleman here that I've watched 3 or 4 videos over the last couple of days of a guy by the name of Mike Novogratz. And he is a billionaire. As it says, he's an ex-hedge fund manager, formerly of the investment firm Fortress Investment Group. He was ranked a billionaire by Forbes in 2007, 2008. And so he recently started basically a digital currency asset management firm. And so I was actually, you know, taking a glimpse into his portfolio of the things he's holding. And of course, what he's holding, if he's holding, you know, several million or 100 millions in them, that lets me know that he's willing to bet the bank on some of these currencies. And so it's definitely something worth taking note of, so I can get into those as well if you guys are interested. But this guy here, Michael Novogratz, if you see there's some recent articles here on him sharing his thoughts, but he's become a Bitcoin evangelist in the fact that as of last year, he solely became a cryptocurrency enthusiast, to where he's began preaching and just saying that, you know, pension funds are coming. He's saying institutional money is waiting. He's actually been in meetings where he spoke with pension fund managers directly, and they're waiting. And one of the things he said in one of the videos I watched is the fact that every pension fund, he said about 20 or so or whatever, are all ready and waiting and educating themselves. But he said that no one wants to be the first and no one wants to be last. And so I think that was Mike Novogratz, or that could have been Tiki Tiwari. But anyway, in some of his videos, he lays down the steps that will be taken for pension funds to come in, and how he foresees the crypto market cap reaching 20 trillion with no problem. So this guy here is definitely somebody I'm keeping an eye on, because he's everywhere now, and he has a lot of funding, and he's putting together some teams and whatnot, and he's anticipating this market really taking off. So I think it's going to be something we all should be aware of. So, but enough of me rambling. Let me get into some questions. And as always, the number is above me, 833 Live RTD. Feel free to call in and share what's on your mind, and we can go from there. And so it says, let me get here. It says Death by Death says 2K in LTC, 3K in gold, and some silver with a huge stack of cash just potentially waiting. Cryptos are too volatile. They should never, ever be used for pension funds. And so, Charles, that's a very good point there. But the idea that the pension funds, and I'll go right there. I'll go to the slide I want to, excuse me, the video I wanted to show. So watch this. Let me move this. What is this? Okay, close. This is not what I wanted to show. All right, so I'll click on this so you guys can see what I see. And so here's an article here that I think is worth mentioning, and it's from Pensions and Investments online.com, and this was as of beginning of this year. It says largest U.S. retirement funds set record at 10.3 trillion in assets. So the U.S. retirement funds set a record at 10.3 trillion in assets. So if you scroll through here, it gives you somewhat of a breakdown of how much money is, or how much money is supposed to be sitting to the side, waiting for the baby boomers to basically begin withdrawing from, in an environment where they're not really meeting expectations of during this economic expansion. A lot of those pension funds promise 7.5% return or whatnot, and a lot of those are not receiving those type of returns. So they're the ones that's going to do some adjusting. So a lot of these pension funds, especially CalPERS and the Illinois pension fund, are doing some adjustments with their allocations of what they're going to be receiving. So they're dropping it from 7.5 to like 7. But yet, if depending on your news source or whatnot, a lot of people say that they're struggling to get that. And so basically stocks are overpriced, so there's no real gains to be made in stocks. So the pension funds are taking more of a risk by doing as I'll show you another one here. Here's a CalPERS. So here's a CalPERS asset allocation for investment portfolio. So as of this past December, this is what the CalPERS, which is the largest pension fund in this country, they got $300 and something billion, and this is how they're allocating their funds. So they got 50% in global equity, 28% in fixed income, 13% in real assets, 8% private equity, and 1% liquidity. So they're sitting on basically 1% worth of paper, or funds that they can have access to right away. And so I believe that out of this breakdown here, as time moves forward, once all those 3 steps I mentioned are taken care of, and insurance is put into place to back up some of these custodians and whatnot, pension funds will feel more secure with investing in this sector because of all of the hype and the buzz, and the fact that right now, apart from this new asset class, there's no way that pension funds can exceed that 7% return rate that they're supposed to be, that they're promising retirees. So they're going to be willing to gamble. And I would imagine it will come from the global equity sector, because a lot of these pension funds are heavily invested in stocks, and when they're overpriced, they're not really returning what this crypto sector can return in the short term. Especially, I could easily see CalPERS, or if CalPERS, if they were the first, that'll set the trend for everybody else, because if they're willing to put 5% of $300 billion into this sector, and of course disperse it out, or however they choose to do it. So if they took 5% from here, and it was 5%, and it said 5% in crypto assets eventually, and it's just in my opinion that they will do that, because they're not going to want to miss out on these gains. So if they put 5% of $300 billion into the crypto sector, what that means for everyone else is that if you are a holder or a investor or speculator, whatever you want to call it, into that sector, whatever you're sitting on now is guaranteed to go up not exponentially, but you're going to be the recipient of a lot of gains. And so, what really made me wanted to talk about this tonight was the fact that I was actually looking at retirement stuff, and I actually was going to do a video earlier about just the whole retirement scheme and how it's coming apart at the seams. And it has something to do with they used to hold. So someone says CalPERS switched their portfolio holdings. They used to hold 70% fixed income. Yeah, that's yeah, man. The pension funds, they have to chase gain. They got to get some yield one way or another, and they're going to go crypto. So I have no doubt in my mind they're going to, once all those 3 steps are met, just because what's hot right now, and especially what's most intriguing is the fact you have the younger generation that are the ones that are extremely excited. And so those fresh out of college, those in their early 30s, 40s, those that are young and really don't feel confident in the retiring period are the ones that's going to be putting a lot of funds into cryptos. So those crypto funds will eventually trickle into some of those pension funds with their gains. But then those who are sitting on a lot of cryptos now will be receiving some very interesting gains there, which will somewhat, depending on how much you're holding, be a early retirement payout type of situation, of course, minus the taxes and whatnot. But so those are some of the things I want to get into tonight. So I'm already off track from the way I wanted to present it, but we're here. It says cryptos are way too volatile. So it says, would it be a good idea to take pension loan to buy gold, silver, and cryptos? Mike Ruiz, man, like as far as actual advice, I wouldn't begin to want to go down that direction. I'm just laying out my thoughts and opinions on what will be unfolding. And if you Google Mike Novogratz and you listen to Tiki Terari and you just listen to a lot of wealthy individuals that's excited right now because of the gains they're going to make, they're funding a lot of things expecting a return on their investment, which lets me know that the crypto market will only go up because there's more infrastructure being put into making it a mainstream asset class. So with that being the case, when it comes to the older archaic methods of retirement, i.e. stock market, things of that nature, I would imagine that you won't see the type of returns in your portfolio if you were holding the conventional 401k and all those other methods like you could if you are willing to, dip and dabble, educate yourself, learn about the crypto sector, because the blockchain is what it's all based upon. Every company, and pretty soon a lot of the top companies on S&P will eventually roll over some type of internal database or product launch of some kind, whether it be cloud-based service of something of that nature, and they're going to utilize blockchain type of technology that people can invest in. So the stock market will rise from that as well, but it's going to be those people that can actually get their hands in on some of these tokens and coins that support that, whether they use Ethereum or any other, whatever the primary blockchain that will be used for payment methods, as well as just database methods and storage and web browsing and all those type of things are going to be what's hot. And those are the ones where a lot of gains will go. And so Charles H says, none of my money will go into cryptos. And so, and that's real news, man. It's not for everybody to get into. I just believe that in the very short term, they will not go down in nominal price. It's going to always be volatile. So that's why, most people only should put what you are able to or willing to lose. But one thing I can guarantee is that going the conventional route of investing in an archaic financial vehicle, as I say, archaic meaning that it's kind of outdated. I believe eventually that, all those equity markets and whatnot will be rolled into some form of blockchain type of technology anyway. So it's just a matter of what's going to be the underlying blockchain they use, if not, their own, which would make money for those who hold cryptos. But one thing I really began thinking about today was the idea of, I was reading an article talking about Generation X and how just the basic beginnings of how to think about retirement, and they were laying out some steps on how you should tighten up your personal budget. Make sure you get a good budget, make sure you know what you're spending money on, make sure you got your emergency fund, and then the next one was come up with a plan of what it is that you feel you need to save in order to retire comfortably. And when I read that statement, the first thought came to mind was, how, that's one thing I always question, is how can you determine what your number will be in a monetary system that is designed upon and that operates through fractional reserve lending, which means there will always be an expansion of the monetary supply. And so $1 million today in purchasing power is guaranteed not to have the same amount of purchasing power in reference to goods and services that it will have in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And the best way to prove that is to think about what $1 million can do today, and then rewind back. So and just, no one really knows, but we can all know that because the cost of living has gone up, $1 million, if that was your retirement number in 1980, $1 million in 1980 would have went a lot further than now, i.e. the cost of a house, a nice house would have been $200,000, like a mansion probably type house would have been $200,000. And so now a medium-sized family home is $200,000. So if you want a nice house, you're looking at $600,000-$700,000, depending on where you're at. If you're in California, it's already $1 million. So there you go. There's your $1 million right there. And so imagine houses and real estate in California 10 years from now, if they're already $1 million, apart from some type of correction and correction of fair market value, because everybody can't afford that no more. So I don't think it'll be $2 million in 10 years. But if on the same track we're on now, it's going to be a lot more expensive than $1 million. So how could your financial goal for retirement be $1 million? It doesn't matter. So the point in case is you can't determine an ideal number for your future, given the fact that the money supply will increase exponentially, especially if there's a correction, which everyone is expecting, which means central bank's going to print more, government's going to borrow more. So the whole idea of determining a number, you're going to be stuck, in my opinion. We got Kenneth online. What's up, my friend? So any new viewers, where you checking in from? What's happening in your world? I'm interested to hear that. And so someone says crypto's all going to zero. And so I, as much as I'm not like, I'm not sitting up here like, everybody should get in. No, I'm just saying, depending on where you're at, depending on your thought process, I don't believe that cryptos will go to zero because they have a use case in a lot of examples. Ideally, the fact that the technology, the whole blockchain spin-off stuff will be the foundation for a lot of companies. So they're not going to go to zero because they will be utilized by some. And in countries where they're already having currency problems, they are craving for cryptocurrencies right now. So there will always be someone somewhere around this planet wanting it. And so I don't foresee it going to zero, but I would imagine that you are able to believe and agree that fiat currencies will go to zero. And then another thing that someone pointed out, a caller a while back, was the idea that even though cryptocurrency is 1,600, all of them won't be around in a couple of years for sure. Some will stick, some won't. But at the end of the day, when you know that your national currency will be printed at an ever-increasing amount because it has an unlimited supply, in its entirety, some of those cryptos that will be utilized, it will have a role in the development of a lot of technology moving forward, are somewhat finite apart from the forks and whatnot. But there's only so many of this particular one, which a lot of people may hold. And because of the promise of the industry and the fact that the crypto sector is not going anywhere, I don't see people wanting to get rid of them. So it's going to have some value in the fact that people will hold it all the way down until someone else acquires it from them. So I don't agree with that it's going to zero, in my opinion. But I'm always open for learning something new. So we have a caller. Let's see what's going on. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Otto.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time. Hello? Uh-oh. Got a problem. Got a problem there. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead. What's
your name?
Can you hear me? Yes, I can. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah. Ken from Colorado.
Ken from Colorado. Good evening, Ken. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about cryptocurrencies mostly, right?
Yes, sir. That's a discussion for tonight, and how I believe that in the very near future, pension funds will have to get involved if they want to see some true gains. But go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to take an alternative position, but, hey, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, feel free. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with the pensions. They're underfunded. They're going to crash just like, we have bubbles everywhere, and that's just another one. They're not funded. So, the whole system has to come down eventually. There's no way they can go on forever.
True.
But when it comes to cryptocurrencies, I'm game on cryptocurrencies if they're used as a currency and not as speculation. And the only way I know how to currently do that is peer-to-peer. Otherwise, you need to touch the powers that be, the elite, to touch fiat currency, which is banking, and they're starting to shut down credit cards.
Mm-hmm. Very true. So what I believe will happen is there's a lot of there, and so one thing that from that gentleman Mike Novogratz, the billionaire guy, one thing that he hinted on is what excites him is the fact that a lot of these coins and tokens have a very large community behind them. So within that community, they're creating ecosystems where, because a lot of people are passionate about certain projects, there's a lot of people who are diehard fans of a lot of these tokens and coins, to where it'll be a lot easier to circulate a lot of those coins amongst the community, to where I think a lot of people will buy into the fact that if their fiat currencies or whatnot around them are crumbling, those people, predominantly the younger generation who understand the whole movement right now with this crypto sector, they will more than likely be willing to accept that cryptocurrency as long as someone on the other end of the country or other side of the world still has that same amount of passion over the project and willing to accept it for goods and services. So I think that, like, for example, I'm not sure if you guys if you're following the Digibyte, which is a coin that has been around for a while, but there's a movement of a lot of people in the Digibyte community to support what's happening in Venezuela. So there's been a lot of positive movements in the price of Digibyte because there's a few people who are trying to get Digibyte into Venezuela. So that movement there, if it takes on and it continues to expand like it's expanding, more people will buy into Digibyte and more people will exchange it amongst themselves as a point of service type of exchange. And so that right there creates confidence that could pose a threat to fiat currencies, especially the Bolivar, which is crumbling. So that's a movement that's underway, which will be good.
Agreed. And let's say you're in your local community and the fiat currency is failing. Mm-hmm. I can see people accepting it locally. Yeah. It's just like currently it's a speculation. So I'm sticking to precious metals.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I agree 100%. And so here's my viewpoint and my opinion on it. The anchor of everything I stand for financially and monetarily is metals. There's no way around that. But I know I'm confident that a way for me to acquire more metals is to recognize this trend and this movement taking place and to be a part of it in a sense where it'll allow me in the long run to be able to acquire more metals. And so I know that as of now, I only got a finite amount of dollars, but yet I believe that especially when this pension fund money come in, like I believe is going to happen, it will basically allow me to then acquire more of what I know is steady and long term. So I think it's a great way of, because I don't gamble. I mean, like flat out gamble. So I do speculate myself in projects that I think have promise to disrupt stuff and that have strong backing behind it from a community and stuff like that. So I follow a lot of this stuff just because I believe that's going to help me acquire more of what I know is important.
I agree. And anything that gets money out of their system, the powers that be, the elite, mm-hmm. is beneficial to the rest of us.
Yeah. And so one of my things.
Here's what
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Here's what I think is going to happen. And I saw some stuff in the news about it, but I forget their term that they're using, the central banks, but I've heard Fed coin, but I believe what they're going to do is they're going to just shift. They're going to shift like MasterCard, which is really nothing more than a form of a coin.
Right.
It's digits.
Right.
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 Backed by nothing. And so I think they're going to make their own coin. And remember, these are the most powerful people in the world. They literally run the world.
Right.
And there's only a couple countries that they don't fully control. And I'm not even sure that they aren't under control. Mm-hmm. So that being the case, with unlimited authority and the ability to back it up with force, because that's what government does, mm-hmm. then they'll get to somehow smash these other ones and force us into what we perceive to be a safe, not you and I, but the average civilian, to believe to be a safe form of currency, mm-hmm. which is really nothing more than a MasterCard called Fed coin or whatever they want to call it. But it won't be limited like Bitcoin. And the other problem I have with Bitcoin is blockchain, unless it's peer-to-peer, is still traceable. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you touch fiat currency, you're in the system. Mm-hmm. And whoever took that first 1 million, right, because mm-hmm. there's only 21 million, if they can get 50% of the vote, and I believe the bankers, and they're working on another ETF for Bitcoin, mm-hmm. and if they can get over 50%, they can make that 50 trillion coins.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. And so because there's so many coins, they're not all going to be around. And so a lot of people believe that Bitcoin is the gold standard of all cryptocurrencies just because it's the first. I personally, I appreciate all the attention that's being given to that coin, but there's a lot of other projects that interest me more from I look at it more from like a startup type of organization. So instead of going directly through some type of stockbroker or whatnot, you can actually go through these exchanges and acquire pieces of a project in hopes of it retaining value. So to me, this is the modern day age of what could be considered some penny stocks, of which a lot will go belly up, but some will increase in value and make a lot of people a couple extra dollars in gains. So, but at the end of the day, the goal is to acquire some more paper so you can get your metals. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, I believe.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And stay on top of the cryptos, because if you see something, I watch you, and if you see something coming around that you think could be I'm not looking to be speculative. I'm retired, so I'm just looking to buy insurance.
Yeah, I hear you.
And so I've already sold my life.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of people that if I were younger, I would be in it as a speculative instrument. Yeah. And agree with you. Try and leverage it into metals, and a lot of people will sell, depending on the ratio of silver to gold, will leverage one of the two metals against the other. Yeah.
And that's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm sure everyone can agree that, as I mentioned at the very intro of this video, national currencies, or our national currency, and national currencies in general, are designed to fail the people, just because there's going to be an infinite supply. So if you know there's going to be an infinite supply of your national currency, and there's even mention of a finite amount of cryptocurrencies, if that currency circulates amongst the community with some confidence, it will retain more value than your national currency will at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Oh, true.
So,
well, I agree with you. And one other thing, just in case your listeners aren't adequately depressed yet, not only are we 21 trillion expecting to spend another trillion this year, turning up every budget we got, and on top of that, we're missing 21 trillion, and that's what they found.
Yeah.
So we're missing, beyond that, there's probably 50 to 60 trillion that's been printed that no one in the world even knows about other than the powers that be.
Right. And in my opinion, because the Federal Reserve has been around for 105 years and counting, I believe it could be a lot more than 60 trillion. Just because
I agree.
I don't doubt that we were monetizing and papering over stuff back in the 60s and 50s and 40s that were not on the books. So there's never been an audit. There's never been an accounting for any of the Federal Reserve notes placed in circulation or digitized that's sitting in some computer somewhere that people are using to do whatever business they need to do with. So there's no telling. So you have a finite amount of metals, a somewhat finite amount of stable coins every here and there, and then you have an infinite supply of papers and digits that comes from a centralized authority figure that has ruined everyone's life in the long run. You take a pick what you prefer there. But thank you for calling in, my friend.
Yeah, totally agreed. Okay, you
appreciate
have a great night. Thanks for your efforts.
All right, thank you. Good call, man. Appreciate you calling in. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, to each his own, man. Whatever works best for you, wherever you feel that you have a chance to better and improve your life. What interests me more so than anything is the idea that as a younger guy, I never truly really, and I still don't buy into the whole retirement concept. Nevertheless, the vehicles that have been positioned for me to utilize to get to that number that you were supposed to be working towards of, as I mentioned earlier, for those that might be just tuning in, I mentioned that the whole retirement scheme is coming apart at the seams because you are not able to determine an ideal retirement number in an environment where the monetary base and our money supply continues to increase daily through fractional reserve banking. So every day that you at your bank, at a commercial bank, you deposit money, they're able to loan out, which increases the monetary base. So how can you set aside an exact amount and expect a stable environment financially to be able to get gains on top of that when inflation, compound inflation, erodes what you're saving? There's no way of ever getting ahead. So I never bought into that, and the more I think about it, I'm trying to help other people realize that there is no ideal number you can retire with, because especially if you're in this, in a younger generation, 10, 20, 30 years, it's very uncertain as to whether or not the Federal Reserve note will continue to be a global power. Nevertheless, whether or not we'll still be using it as it's looking right now. So, yeah, that's one thing, man. So that's all I always say. It's my opinion, of course, but I always tell people, make sure you get your weight up, because at the end of the day, metals are designed to be hedges / insurance / anchor you down in a monetary hurricane or a monetary tsunami that's coming, and that we're going to experience when this correction occurs, in my opinion. So that's just me. But any questions or whatnot, feel free to call in. We got a couple more minutes and I'm going to chime off. But I wanted to just share with you guys some of my thoughts and opinions as to how I believe that pension funds will be rolling into cryptos, because they need some of those gains. And here, think about it. If you're a pension fund manager, or if you're responsible for, I'm gonna actually pull it up right now. If you're responsible for handling the affairs of millions upon millions of people in this country, nevertheless, every country has their own pension problems, being underfunded, because none of the fund managers ever factored in the side effects of unprecedented monetary policy of NERP and ZERP and quantitative easing, and just those 2 or 3 areas there was never in existence prior to this whole Great Recession stuff. So that being the case, pension funds are looking for ways of getting gains, especially the fact they're underfunded and they have more going out than what's coming in, because the younger generation within the next 5 years, in my opinion, will completely dial back. They will completely dial back on setting aside savings for their retirement, i.e. 401k, Roth, IRA, whatever vehicles is positioned to them. They're going to dial back because the cost of living will go up. There's going to be very little disposable income. And if you're trying to just eat and feed your family today, you're not thinking about setting aside an allocated amount to meet your financial target for when you retire 20, 30 years from now. So there's going to be a shortage of fresh money coming into stocks, fresh money going into these pension funds, especially if you work for if you're working for your state, or you're good to, not the government, because they can always print, but if you work for your state or your city, in the public sector, then you're going to be in trouble, because there's going to be less funds coming in, which means they're going to have to ramp up taxes to make up the difference. So whether you are expecting a pension or expecting a retirement, taxes are going to go up, or they're going to make you contribute more to your pension. But here's something I want to mention. When I just talk about how, Mike Novogratz, this gentleman here, billionaire hedge fund guy, talks about the idea that he's talking to and aware of a lot of pension fund managers he's talked to, and knows that they're waiting, they're ready, just when 3 main indicators are set and ready to go, that no one wants to be the first, no one wants to be the last, but the money is coming. And once that first pension fund goes in, then the second, the third, the fourth, and this is just the list of largest pension schemes in the United States. So here we have the top 30 here, and this is as of 2018, with CalPERS being the first. They have $336 billion, of which the assumed rate of return is 7.5, but we all know that they're not getting 7.5, and it's 73% funded. And so here we have the CalSTRS, we got New York State Common, we got New York State Retirement, we got Texas. So we got 336, 216. So this is billions upon billions of dollars. Then we scroll down here to Illinois. They have 49 billion in their possession, and so it's 39% funded. So they're coming up short 60%, which means at any minute now they're going to have a meltdown. And this right here is outdated, because I've already read several articles and reported on several articles where they are arguing as to how they're going to word this to people to tell them that it's more like 6.5, if probably not even less than that. So the allocation for all these funds here are going to have to change, because the stock market ain't returning 7.5%, even though a lot of them invested in global equity. But why would you're chasing 7.5 and it's not realistically there, because the stock market is overpriced anyway. So what's the next best vehicle that's guaranteed to get you some gains right now? And it's going to be the crypto sector. So here alone in the top 5, and the top 5 right here is 1 trillion. So it's 1 trillion in the top 5, not to mention all this other here that's coming. This is just within the US. Then you got other countries that's going to be doing the same thing. So I can imagine how here when it talks about the largest U.S. retirement fund set a record of 10.3 trillion, how easily, a third of this could be allocated just in the cryptos alone in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years because the market's going to go up. So with that being the case, I think it would be worth your while if you're a younger individual and you realize the Ponzi nature of this whole come up with a number for your future, that it's not going to really work. Of course, this is all my opinion, but it might be worth your while to look into things of this nature while all along making sure you're solid, you have a solid foundation and getting your weight up, as I always say, as far as acquiring sound money, which is real money. Anyway, so I'm going to answer some more questions if you guys have them or some more thoughts. Let me know if anything I've said is completely off. Let me know. I'm down for some great discussion on that one. This is all my opinion and what I believe is transpiring based upon my involvement and all of this for the last several years. It says, what happens if the U.S. decides the best way to handle this debt is to do what Japan does? No inflation and government owns everything. Tony, that's a very good thing, man. And I believe that just like the Bank of Japan owns, I think I heard 50% of the equities market in Japan, as well as probably 50% of the bond market, in Japan. Well, we'll stop the central bank from doing it this next go around when there's a market correction, even though legally they're not supposed to dip and dabble in that area. But legally, I don't think they were supposed to, perform quantitative easing to help out their shareholders, i.e. the too big to fail banks. And so the fact that the biggest banks in our country received a bailout for their own errors, let me know that our Congress, our politicians will probably be willing to allow the Federal Reserve to adjust those mandates and become the purchaser and they're the lender of last resort or something of that nature. They'll be the first, the middle, and the last lender because they are the issuer of our national currency. And so basically we technically, apart from Trump right now verbally, calling out, the Federal Reserve and some tweets, no president in the last umpteen years have even mentioned monetary policy. Nevertheless, express an opinion on it. So I believe that the central bank, Federal Reserve Bank being the number one bank, will easily get involved in equities when if the stock market takes a dip and whatever the plunge protection team, whatever, can't prop it up, you can sure enough bet Federal Reserve going to come in and purchase whatever was lost. And they will be a owner of majority of the businesses in this country, like they are already the biggest real estate holder in our country by holding all those mortgage-backed securities. So, yeah, it's just a matter of time. And when it comes to student loans, auto loans, they're going to let those default because they're $1 trillion, $2 trillion. The government will step in and borrow that $2 or $3 trillion in some form of fashion or do some type of forgiveness or something like that. So all the debt that's due in the next 5-10 years will be defaulted on, whether it be through some type of monetary inflationary policy where they're going to try to pay it off with cheap currency like we're doing now with compound inflation, or there will be some type of wiping clean, utilizing our currency in some form of fashion and issuing a whole new currency that will be reallocated into those old notes somehow. Ain't no telling, because no one ever imagined quantitative easing and now quantitative tightening. So there's no telling what they can come up with to save their butts. It says gold protects your personal investment. Silver is used to purchase more. They are the biggest Bitcoin. It says Japan equals karoshi or death by work. So China is just devaluing its currency and U.S. can't win the trade war. That's a good point there, man. Like, so I've read up on a couple of what articles of what China's doing with their currency there, and they have a lot of internal problems. So I'm not surprised at all. Then you factor in this trade war situation, and at the end of the day, it's all where every country is involved in a currency war, whether it be against other nations or a war within with their citizens, because a lot of times we hear about currency war, trade wars, but it always come back to hurt the consumer, because whether or not they put extra tariffs on the goods and services, businesses always just shift the cost to the consumer anyway. So instead of going to Walmart for $2 paper towel or whatever it might be, it's gonna be $3.50. That $1.50 just be rolled. That tariff gonna be rolled off into the consumer. So it's gonna cause an inflationary type of environment here. So at the end of the day, this is all a big currency war, because they're always trying to devalue, or it's the race, as I say, it's the race to zero. Every currency, they're always trying to outdo each other by devaluing their currency internationally, which only hurts the citizens. So that's why, in my opinion, it's your best bet to, rethink the dollar or whatever currency you are in or receiving. Yeah. He says the banks didn't want cryptos, they wouldn't be available to us if the future, and they write the script. Yeah, so Michael, that's a good point. So here's another angle that you can consider. So once the pension funds and retirement vehicles are structured in small increments, but think about it, 1 to 2% of all of these funds put into the crypto sector is going to cause that $1 trillion market cap, like that. And so a lot of people, especially the guy Mike Novogratz, said that it could be $1 trillion by the end of this year, because there's already at 800 billion. And so for those that follow and watch these markets here, if you just backtrack to December 21st, 22nd, 23rd, when all coins peaked at their absolute price and the market's at 800 and something trillion or 800 something billion, all those coins that did a major upswing and corrected to fair market value today, I believe they were pumped up for a reason. Like that was an experiment by the powers that be to start this hype, so that they can begin preparing this next heist. And this is what I mean by the next heist. The next heist will be pension funds. What better way to get the trillions upon trillions of money just parked there, not doing anything, that belongs to the working citizens of this planet who were expecting a retirement? What better way to get those funds into your pockets if you are a hedge fund manager or the powers that be or too big to fail bank, other than to lay a foundation so that people feel comfortable rolling that money in, so that the recipients and those who hold the most cryptos will be on the receiving end of all those gains. And that is considered a heist. And so in my opinion, and this is just me speaking, but me being a younger person, already not sold on the whole retirement concept, don't even plan on utilizing that method as I get older, I look at this as the greatest wealth transfer in human history if you're young, because all these pension funds will roll into cryptocurrencies that, if you're holding, will appreciate in value, equaling the effect of a retirement for those that are holding those. And then you take care of everything, the taxes are all on top of that, but you'll still come out a lot better, given this entire economy and the monetary system still remain in play, because I believe it will be very inflationary. And so I also saw someone mention that it wouldn't be hard for a lot of these overinflated or central banks and whatnot to roll off some of their liabilities into the crypto market, basically monetizing to pump up the crypto market, so that it'll be easier for them to use some of those crypto gains to then pay back some of those digital and fiat debts that they have a lot easier. So we could see a increase in the crypto sector in that regards there in an inflationary aspect. So no matter what, I believe it's all about basically getting in and getting out at the right time. And so another thought of mine was that once the pension fund money rolls into cryptos and they increase the allocations to where it becomes somewhat alarming, because it's going to happen all around the world. A lot of government, a lot of pension fund managers, portfolio wealth individuals going to roll into the crypto sector, to where at that point it will be kind of alarming, because it might be not necessarily bubble territory, but to me that'll be a great sign that you might want to consider, getting out. Because once pension funds go in and the young money, those that are in the younger population are receiving some of those gains, a lot of those people are going to cash out anyway on dumb stuff like Lamborghinis and Ferraris and all types of stupid stuff. The younger population will. But that might be the exit sign. Once pension funds go full strength into cryptocurrencies, that might be the exit. That might be the sign needed to begin exiting into tangible goods. And so, just my thoughts. But I missed some questions. It says, debt pigs and treacherous corporate destroyed the U.S. economy with yours of drug dealers and the feds. Debt has been made money that is different from biblical days. So what happens to the BIS or IMF if their world goes crypto? Tony, man, good question. And the BIS and IMF, apart from the whole SDR crap, ain't no telling what they might do, being that they're the primary central bank of central banks. I would imagine that, you know, they are a part of all this crypto stuff, and they have some type of ultimate cryptocurrency that governments can use backed by gold. There's no telling. That's the thing. All this is new, and it's all a big part of this monetary experiment we living in. So ain't no telling what's up the sleeve of a lot of these wealthier individuals. It says pension funds are in bonds. Yeah, bonds. Man, that's a whole nother situation there, because, this whole, it's just, and here's my thing with bonds. You're basically loaning money to the government, and based upon the yield of a lot of these 10, 20, 30 years, you're not getting much of a return in the near or long term that's going to really beat inflation. So, yeah, you'd be a damn fool to lend your money to someone that's broke. Yeah, so I can see, bonds having issues. Not sure how that's going to all play out, but we'll see. It says when real estate crashes, a lot of people will get hurt, same as 2007. Yes, I do agree 100%. And so here's another thing, like knowing that inflation is really running rampant now in housing, student loans, equities, bonds. A lot of things are overly priced, so it needs to correct. And so you factor in some of the potential nominal gains that you'll receive during this whole correction phase. I kind of believe that, especially with metals, the nominal price of metals when the dollar is hyperinflated away will be so large that and the amount of real estate that will be available on the open market will be so plentiful that it will be easy to acquire some of these with some of the gains that you have from metals / cryptos, probably well before the hyperinflation, if that happens, really takes effect. Because that's why I mentioned earlier about, when the pension money comes into cryptos, that might be the right time to exit, because at that point, it's good to say that you'll have enough gains depending on where you're at, because also I believe metals will increase as well, to be able to, acquire some of these tangible assets for after the whole restructuring aspect and for just, generational stuff. So, yeah, so there's no telling, man. That's the thing. Like, that's why I think it's good to go back and forth, to share, bounce ideas off people. So that's why I like, have people chiming in, because we're walking through this together. Like, if you're on here now, we are a part. We got front row seats to this monetary experiment that is going to unfold in a very uncomfortable way. But if you're tuned in to hear, you watch alternative media, you're aware and you're preparing in some form or fashion to where you won't be caught off guard like majority of the world will be, because they have no clue that everything around them is an illusion. So that's just my thoughts there. Yeah, you could buy a lot of land in Venezuela with a few coins of silver there. But only problem with that is that because they don't really honor property rights there, you can acquire a lot, and if it looks like you are too comfortable and sitting on too much land, Maduro gonna come and take it from you. As the guest I had, Jose Nino, a while back, of Venezuelan descent with family still there, mentioned how, any point, any time, the government, can come in and just take your land without any type of compensation. So on the surface, you'll have the funds to probably acquire a lot of stuff, but yet, then again, you do too much, it's going to look like you balling at the expense of the Venezuelan people, and either the locals going to take it from you or the government will. And that's the idea of, how to balance out acquiring true assets in the midst of other people struggling. So if you got your entire neighborhood going under and you are experiencing difficulties but not like the rest of people around you, how do you put a smile on your face knowing that you can probably acquire their property, but yet you can't approach them and say, hey, I buy it from you for, because they're like, what's this guy doing? What is he sitting on that he can acquire my house or buy this or buy that from me? He must, let me go see what he has. And so it can be a safety issue. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see how this all plays out. But once again, man, we're approaching the hour mark. And so I appreciate you guys chiming in, tuning in, and sharing, a little back and forth with me. It's been great as always. Thanks for the caller that called in. And so as always, if you're new to RTD, make sure you give me a thumbs up and share this so that more people can find out about the live stream we have weeknights. And then also I'm working on changing the format a little bit. Want to make it a little bit more interactive and want to try to figure out a way to get more people engaged and get some more people calling and sharing what's happening in their world. So as you see on my shoulder here, I got a couple ways for you to get in touch with me. They're all in the description down below. So I advise all you guys to go down below and follow me on the Instagram, social media, whatnot. I'm going to start posting more news articles on my Facebook page. So, you know, take a minute, go to Facebook at Rethinking the Dollar. Share and like me there so you can see articles throughout the day. I'm going to make sure I start doing that tomorrow. RTD University, I put all my articles, all my interviews there. It's a great educational resource. So, and then Steam It. Everyone should have a Steam It account because you can get involved in cryptocurrency without even having to put up forth any fiat. You can just share stuff that interests you and build a little community there. So follow me there. I'll follow you back, and we can start a bigger community on Steam It. So get the free ebook. Download 5 Reasons to Hold Precious Metal Before the Next Recession. And as always, guys, if you want to support me, I have a Patreon link down below. We'll love your support, as well as some great gear here, coming up with more ideas so people can share things that will start some conversation back and forth. So once again, everybody, enjoy your evening. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night, 9:30. Be here on time. Let's get this party started. Thank you for tuning in.